It was meant to be a harmless joke, something to lighten the mood before the mission, but the words hung in the air like a dark cloud. The USS Valor rocked gently on the waves of the Pacific, the distant horizon blurred by a thick fog. It was early morning, the sun barely peeking through, casting a muted glow over the deck. The crew moved with a practiced ease, preparing for what was supposed to be a routine sortie. Before we begin this mission, hit subscribe and ring the bell, because some stories of courage never made the headlines, but they deserve to be heard. Tell us where you're watching from, who's the hero in your family, and let us know in the comments how you liked this story. Commander Riley Ghost Hart stood at the helm, her blue eyes scanning the preparations. She felt the weight of anticipation settle in her stomach. The air was thick with a mix of excitement and tension. Today's mission was a standard reconnaissance operation, but the gravity of their duties was never far from her mind. Admiral James Ironclad Thompson walked briskly onto the deck, his presence immediately commanding attention. He had a knack for breaking the ice with humor, and today was no different. "All right, crew. Before we scramble, I have to ask, what's your kill count, Ghost?" he chuckled, his voice booming over the ship's chatter. The laughter that followed quickly faded as Riley's expression turned serious. It was a question meant to elicit a smile, but instead it struck a nerve. The room fell silent, the crew exchanging glances, unsure how to respond. "Well," Riley began, her voice steady but low, "my first mission was different than any of us imagined." Flashbacks flooded her mind, vivid images of smoke and chaos. She recalled her first engagement, the adrenaline rush of the dogfight, and the gut-wrenching aftermath. The Valor had been deployed on a reconnaissance mission over hostile waters. The coordinates flashed in her mind: 12.88 degree N, 79.1 degree W. The weather had been unpredictable, foggy with visibility barely reaching a mile, the wind at 10 knots. Riley remembered the orders echoing in her headset as they prepared to engage. "This is Ghost 1. Scrambling now," she had said, heart racing as she took to the skies. The enemy had come out of nowhere, their jets slicing through the clouds like phantoms. "I lost 2 pilots that day," she continued, her voice wavering slightly. "We were outnumbered, and the decision to engage cost lives." The crew shifted uncomfortably, their earlier joviality replaced by a palpable tension. Lieutenant Marcus Hawk Lee stood nearby, his youthful face now somber. "You can't blame yourself for that, Commander." But his attempt at reassurance felt hollow in the stillness that followed. Riley looked around, noting the expressions on her crew's faces. Some bore the weight of sympathy, others confusion. Chief Petty Officer Angela Tank Rodriguez crossed her arms, her gaze piercing. "We're all in this together, but we can't forget what we're up against." As the conversation continued, the air thickened with unspoken truths. The crew's differing views on combat began to surface, revealing cracks in their camaraderie. Some believed in the honor of their mission, while others questioned the cost of their actions. Tension simmered, a silent battle of ideals fought among those who were supposed to trust each other with their lives. Riley felt the burden of leadership pressing down on her. How could she unite a crew divided by the reality of war? She took a breath, steadying herself. "We all have our scars," she said, her voice firm, "but we need to focus on the mission." Just then, the ship's PA system crackled, breaking the heavy silence. "All hands prepare to depart. Set course for 12.8 degree N, 79.1 degree W. Conditions are foggy with expected turbulence." The moment hung in the air. The crew exchanged glances, the earlier levity now overshadowed by the weight of Riley's words. As they began to move toward their stations, Riley's heart raced. She felt their eyes on her, a mix of admiration and doubt. She had opened up about her past, revealing the haunting truths that accompanied their duty. With each step toward the aircraft, she sensed the shift in morale. The camaraderie that had been a source of strength now felt fragile. They were not just preparing for a mission, They were facing the ghosts of their decisions and the weight of the lives they carried with them. Riley took her place at the front of the formation, steeling herself. She was their leader, but the shadows of her past loomed large. The mission ahead was not just about reconnaissance. It was about confronting their fears and the emotional toll of their choices. The crew settled into position, the hum of the engines echoing in their ears. As they prepared for takeoff, Riley focused on the task at hand, knowing that the real challenge lay not just in the skies but within their hearts. As the Valor surged forward, the fog enveloped them like a shroud, a reminder of the uncertainty they faced. The mission was just beginning, but the weight of their truths lingered heavily, ready to unravel as they soared into the unknown. The air crackled with tension, and as the ship cut through the mist, Riley knew they would soon confront the reality of their choices, together. But the real test was yet to come. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the weight of unspoken truths began to fracture the unity of the crew. The USS Valor glided through the water, the faint sound of waves lapping against the hull punctuating the tense atmosphere aboard the ship. It was late afternoon, and the crew had gathered for a routine training exercise, the air thick with anticipation and the remnants of Riley's earlier confession. Commander Riley Ghost Hart stood at the forefront, her expression a mix of determination and uncertainty. The previous day's revelations still echoed in her mind, the way her words had transformed the mood from lighthearted to somber. Now, as they prepared for the exercise, she could feel the tension simmering beneath the surface. "All right, team," she said, her voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of concern. "Today, we're focusing on tactical maneuvers in response to drone threats. Let's keep it sharp." Lieutenant Marcus Hawk Lee was nearby, adjusting his flight gear with a nervous energy. His youthful enthusiasm had dimmed slightly after Riley's earlier admission, and it showed in the way he avoided her gaze. Chief Petty Officer Angela Tank Rodriguez stood with her arms crossed, watching the younger pilots with a critical eye, her brow furrowed in thought. As they moved into formation, Riley felt the weight of leadership pressing down on her. The crew had been through a lot, but the truth of her past, of the lives lost under her command, lingered like a phantom. The exercise began, and she called for the first maneuvers. "This is Ghost 1. Initiating drill now," she announced, and the pilots responded in kind. The sky above was clear, a stark contrast to the fog that had shrouded their previous mission. But the clarity did little to ease the tension. The crew engaged in the drill, practicing evasive tactics against simulated drone attacks. Riley watched closely, her heart racing as she guided them through each movement. "Maintain formation. We're practicing evasive maneuvers," she called out, her voice cutting through the thrum of engines. Just as they began to settle into a rhythm, the calm was shattered. An alarm blared from the ship's control room, and the radar lit up with unexpected contacts. "Enemy drones detected. Multiple contacts at 12 o'clock. A voice crackled over the radio. "This is Ghost 1. Engage now," Riley shouted, adrenaline surging through her. The exercise had just turned real. The crew scrambled, their training kicking in as they prepared for the unexpected threat. "Ghost 1, I'm not sure we're ready for this." Hawk's voice trembled with uncertainty. "Focus, Hawk. We've trained for this," Riley replied, her tone sharp. Doubt crept into her mind, threatening to undermine her authority. As the drones closed in, the crew fell into a coordinated response. Riley led them through tactical formations, her heart pounding as she monitored the rapidly changing situation. "Ghost 3, take point. Ghost 2, cover the flanks," she commanded, feeling the weight of each decision. The drones swooped low, darting around the Valor with an agility that caught the crew off guard. The pilots struggled to maintain their formations, and Riley could sense the rising panic. "Ghost 2, watch your 6, she shouted, but it was too late. A drone veered dangerously close, forcing one of the pilots to pull up sharply. "This is Ghost 2. Near miss. I'm engaging." The pilot's voice was strained, echoing the fear that rippled through the crew. "Riley, we can't hold this formation." Hawk yelled, frustration evident in his voice. "We need to split up." Riley hesitated, the weight of her previous decisions crashing over her. She could feel the fracture growing within her team, the doubts surfacing like ghosts from the past. "Do it! Split into pairs," she ordered, trying to regain control. As they adapted to the new strategy, the crew began to work together, but the tension was palpable. Riley could see the uncertainty in Hawk's eyes, the way he questioned her decisions. "Ghost 1, this is Ghost 3. I have a visual on one of the drones," the pilot reported, voice steady but tense. "Engage with missiles," Riley replied, determination hardening in her tone. The drones retaliated, unleashing countermeasures that rattled the Valor. The ship rocked under the impact, and Riley felt a surge of fear. Would they be able to handle this? "Ghost 1, I can't keep this up," Hawk shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. "Trust the training," she urged, feeling the weight of her leadership more than ever. The exercise continued to spiral, each moment filled with the haunting specter of uncertainty. Riley's heart raced as she pushed her team to adapt, to find strength in their unity. But the cost of war loomed larger, a shadow over their resolve. As the drill finally concluded, the crew landed back on the Valor, the adrenaline still coursing through their veins. Riley surveyed their faces, noting the mixture of relief and lingering fear. They had survived, but at what cost? Tension hung in the air, heavier than before as the crew stepped down from the aircraft. Riley felt the burden of her choices pressing on her chest, and she knew that the emotional fallout from this exercise would linger. As they regrouped, the camaraderie they'd built began to feel fragile, like a tightrope stretched too thin. The truth was out, and the crew had faced the weight of it. Riley looked around, searching for a flicker of hope amidst the unease. "We'll do better next time," she promised, but the words sounded hollow. The crew nodded, but she could see the doubt in their eyes. They were not just pilots. They were haunted by the decisions they would have to make in the future. As they stood together, the sun set behind them, casting long shadows over the deck. The night was coming, bringing with it the uncertainty of what lay ahead. The struggle was far from over, and Riley knew they would face more than just enemy drones in the battles to come. But the real test of their resolve was still waiting, lurking just beyond the horizon. The alarms blared as the real enemy descended upon them, leaving no room for doubt or hesitation. It was early morning aboard the USS Valor, the sky painted in hues of orange and pink, but the beauty of the dawn was overshadowed by the urgency of the moment. The crew had just finished a routine briefing when the sudden alert jolted everyone into action. Commander Riley Ghost Hart stood at the helm, her heart racing. The atmosphere was electric, filled with the tension of impending battle. She could see the anxiety etched on the faces of her crew, a mix of determination and fear. Hawk's youthful exuberance had vanished, replaced by a steely resolve, while Tank's eyes narrowed, her instincts kicking in. "This is Ghost 1. What's the situation?" Riley barked into the comms, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. "Unknown vessel approaching at high speed. Coordinates 15.5 degree N, 78.3 degree W. All hands, battle stations." The voice of the operations officer crackled back. "Prepare for engagement," Riley commanded, feeling the weight of her responsibility press down on her. This was no drill. Lives were at stake. "Ghost 2, weapons check," she ordered, glancing at the tactical display. The unknown ship was closing in fast, and the crew needed to be ready. "Ghost 2, all systems go," came the reply, but the tension in the pilot's voice betrayed the fear beneath the surface. Riley took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. Memories of past missions flickered through her mind, reminders of the decisions that haunted her. She remembered the faces of those she'd lost, the weight of their sacrifice heavy on her heart. But there was no time for reflection now. She had to lead her crew. "Ghost 3, take the lead. Engage at will," she ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. The pilots scrambled into formation, engines roaring to life as they prepared for the unknown. As the crew took to the skies, the Valor swayed beneath them, a solid fortress against the encroaching threat. The enemy vessel loomed on the radar, its silhouette sharp against the dawn. "Ghost 1, I have visual," Hawk shouted, his voice steady yet urgent. "It's armed. We're going to need to maneuver fast." "Engage evasive tactics," Riley replied, her mind racing. The tension was palpable, the stakes higher than ever. The unknown ship fired first, a barrage of missiles streaking toward them. Riley felt her stomach drop. "Ghost 2, evade, now!" she shouted, her heart in her throat. "On it," Hawk responded, executing a sharp turn that sent them spiraling away from the incoming fire. The crew relied on their training, moving as one fluid unit. Riley watched as they engaged with precision, but the enemy ship was relentless. "Ghost 1, we're taking fire. Shields at 70%, the pilot of Ghost 3 reported, urgency coloring his tone. "Redirect power to forward shields," Riley commanded, feeling the familiar weight of command settle on her shoulders. She was no stranger to battle, but the memories of her past weighed heavily on her. "Ghost 1, I'm losing control." Hawk's voice shook through the comms. "Stay focused. You've trained for this," Riley urged, her heart racing. She needed to inspire confidence, to remind them of their strength. But as the battle raged on, doubt crept in. Would they survive this? Would she make the right choices? "Ghost 1, we have a chance to flank," Hawk shouted, determination replacing fear. "Take it. Engage now," Riley ordered, a surge of hope igniting within her. The crew responded, working in unison as they maneuvered into position. The enemy ship loomed larger, its defenses weaker as they closed the distance. "Firing missiles," Hawk called out, his voice steady despite the chaos. "This is Ghost 1. Engage the target," Riley shouted as the missiles launched, streaking toward the enemy vessel. The impact was thunderous, the enemy ship shuddering under the force of the attack. But just as victory seemed within reach, an alarm blared from the control panel. "Ghost 1, incoming missile," the operations officer warned, panic rising in his voice. "Evasive maneuvers, now!" Riley yelled, adrenaline surging through her veins. The crew responded, but the missile was fast. It struck with a deafening explosion, shaking the Valor to its core. "Ghost 2, report," Riley demanded, her heart pounding. "Shields down to 40%. We're still fighting," came the reply, but the determination in the pilot's voice was tinged with fear. Riley felt the weight of her past decisions crashing over her. She had led her crew into battle, but at what cost? Would they pay the price for her choices? "Ghost 1, we need to retreat," Hawk urged, desperation creeping into his tone. "No, we can't back down now," Riley snapped, her resolve hardening. They had come too far to turn away. In that moment, she faced a critical choice. Would she risk it all for victory, or would she preserve the lives of her crew? Memories of those she had lost flooded her mind, each face a reminder of the burden she carried. "Ghost 1, we can't keep this up," Hawk insisted, his voice strained. "Stay with me. We're going to finish this," she shouted, determination surging through her. With a final push, the crew launched a coordinated attack, their spirits ignited by a shared purpose. The enemy ship faltered, and Riley felt a surge of hope. As the last missile struck home, the enemy vessel erupted in flames, the threat finally neutralized. The crew erupted in cheers, but Riley stood still, a mix of relief and sorrow washing over her. They had won, but the cost lingered in the air like smoke. The emotional toll of the battle settled heavily on her shoulders, and she realized the true impact of their experiences would haunt them all. As they regrouped, Riley looked around at the faces of her crew, battered but united. They had faced their fears together, and though the battle was won, the war within each of them continued. "Good job, everyone," Riley said, her voice steady though her heart felt heavy. "We made it through this together." But as she scanned the horizon, she knew that the ghosts of their past decisions would always be with them, waiting to be confronted once more. The real struggle was just beginning.